loves Alan Eastman. I'll just cut that
Andrew
in somewhere.
loves Alan Eastman.
I'll just cut that
Hello
in.
and welcome.
Whoa!
Some of us aren't ready to go yet. Hello and welcome to Onesies, a podcast of one season wonders and blunders and Alan Eastman appreciation. My name is Andrew.
My name is Emily.
And we are discussing a non-Alan Eastman episode of Dracula the series that's better directed than an Alan Eastman episode.
He came into his own apparently later. We can discuss your Alan Eastman love later.
It actually was before Dracula the series. Alan Eastman directed 1987's Crazy Moon starring Kiefer Sutherland and Vanessa Vaughn, which I have a fondness for despite it never being released in a good home video transfer. But I recommend it. It's cute. Kiefer Sutherland's a spoiled, miserable rich kid who takes pictures of dog shit and freaks out his family. And Vanessa Vaughn is the deaf sales girl who nobody wants her to date a hearing boy.
Well, I love Kiefer Sutherland.
Hashtag I hate Kiefer Sutherland. So there you go. Hate him.
He's so cute. He's so cute.
He's a hack.
He's so cute. But I realized my husband and I were talking about this. My sexual awakening was Young Guns. I was far too young, but like all that hunkiness, Lou Diamond Phillips, Kiefer Sutherland, Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, all of those hunks. Oh, Christian Slater, all in one movie. I was good. That was my sexual awakening.
Wasn't Christian Slater only in the second one?
Well, I don't care. It's the same universe. Anyway,
cool.
Enough about that. We've got episode 13 of Dracula the series to talk about, called Bad Blood. This is a very weird episode, folks. We've got a new director on board, and he's directing it like an actual TV show, kind of. And
closer than ever before.
And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we open, I'm going to start this off because this I thought was very strange, but also interesting storytelling, with Lucard in his Halloween USA vampire cape, walking down a cobblestone street in Luxembourg at night, and he is happened upon by a young man with pantyhose over his face, demanding money. Or his life. What is it? Your money or your life? And Lucard is playing it cool. Oh, isn't that a little bit hackneyed? Right? Like, oh boy, that sure is a cliche. Blah, 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 blah. And Fang's out. Then we cut to the shadows of these two struggling on the wall. And one of the bodies slumps down. And of course, you just assume that it's the thief. But when you cut back to the action, it's actually Lucard down on the ground, and the robber runs away. We didn't do our three things because I was so excited that they used like these shadows to kind of bait and switch the story. Ooh, boy. They're not directly showing the action. It made me kind of excited.
Watching some Fellini here.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your three things?
What are my three things? Name that polka.
Shit.
Sorry, was that one of yours?
Oh, hell yeah, it was.
Meth face. And I want you to teach me everything you know.
Okay. Mine will be stage skills. All work and no play makes Drac a dull boy. Oh, and the Sophie impression.
Oh, yeah. See?
Okay.
I left that one for you.
Thank you. So as we also saw that the robber has a skull and crossbones on his backpack.
Yeah, which made me think, is he in a gang? Is he, I don't know, like he's part of some association or some club that have skull and crossbones. Some
anti-vampire association where you tempt a vampire. This was also the most homoerotic Dracula bite in a while.
I mean, I watch it with a perverted eye anyway. And so when you cut to the shadows and there was like one man here, one man here, and kind of this was happening. I was like, woo, little bit of fun happening.
Yeah. But no.
But no.
Okay. So yes, Dracula is down for the count. We have our credits, and then we come back on Sophie and Chris.
So we have, again, the thing that struck me immediately about this is that these are like maybe 90 to 120-second scenes, and Sophie and Chris are in the house. There wasn't an establishing shot of the house this time, was there?
I don't think so.
And
I think we just came in.
I think we just came in, and Chris is laying on the sofa reading a magazine, and Sophie's digging around, and you can tell that he's a little bit annoyed with her, and he's like trying to make conversation, but in that annoying passive aggressive way where he's like, boy, this article I'm reading sure is sad. Oh, boy. And Sophie's just like, what the fuck are you doing? She picks up the magazine, and it's like a one-piece bikini, which, forgive me, I don't understand this. I'm not a fashionista. And how to get an almost complete tan. And she's like, you fucking loser. And she throws the magazine and she leaves, and he's really annoyed. So, he says something like, oh, what is it? Another hot date or something. And she's like, whatever. And she just leaves. Now, the previous episode, they went out on a freaking date. So we're losing that continuity again. What the actual fuck? It's driving me crazy.
Especially since this episode belongs, I don't know, episode 4, maybe. Like, maybe 5 if you ramped up the mom's arc a while ago. Like,
yeah.
You really only need about 5 of these episodes to tell their full story. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then we cut to sick Dracula, and there's somebody teleporting in behind him.
Yeah.
And we know this because 1991 VHS CGI squiggles appear.
It's like a electronic zipper. It's just like buzzing lightning zipper comes down, and a guy steps out from nowhere. He steps back into the zipper, and the zipper goes away. And as Dracula turns around, the zipper reappears on the other side of him, and he steps out again. And he's got a doctor's bag. I noticed that right away. So I'm assuming at this point that Dracula has called for him to help him.
But Dracula then says, who's there?
Yeah, but Dracula doesn't know who's there. So that put my theory to rest really, really quickly.
But no, he did call him, we find out. So this is Dr. Varney, who's got silly hair, and he wears a hat around. And he is played by
Sam Melkin. I have it up here. Sam Melkin. Yeah. He was in Videodrome, Day of the Dead, Diary of the Dead. I'm sorry, not Day of the Dead.
He is one of the better actors this show has seen. Like, because he also seems to know what he's doing. He's like, oh, I'm in Luxembourg on this shitty show.
Yeah.
At least I'm in Luxembourg. Like, he's very self-aware.
Yeah.
So, and he gives Dracula shit. He's like, well, of course you're sick. You've been defying vampire nature.
Yeah.
So we are going to get some discussions of the vampire behavior on the show, but no answers to our questions. Okay. Dracula also can't remember what has happened to him.
Right.
So he's having trouble giving a medical report.
Which might explain why he forgot that the doctor was going to just show up. Maybe. Also,
Lucard's got different hair. Jordy's got puffier hair this episode. It's bigger.
Is it? I guess I didn't notice.
Bigger. Yeah, you didn't notice. I feel like they shot that. I feel like this is where somebody was like, guys, we got to really get Dracula's series back on course to make our 7-year show Bible. Like, we got to start doing some stuff. Princess Leia is going to be Luke's sister. That's why they kissed. That's how it fucking rolls on Coruscant. Okay. So then we cut back to Chris and Max, and Chris is upset, and Max is like, what's wrong? He's like, you seen Sophie? He's like, do you know Sophie? He's like, Sophie? And then Max, in the only acting what's this jackass's name?
Jacob
Jacob Tierney
Tierney.
has done since that one episode where he stapled well or whatever. He does an impression of Mia Kirshner that is spot on to the point that it's like, why
That
does he
only
do this all the time?
only a prepubescent boy could nail
Yeah.
a teenage girl on the head that closely. And it's not offensive. It's not like he's just like clearly repeating something that Sophie told him when he last saw her. I'm going to the cafe. I'm going to be out late. Tell Uncle Gustav. Wait, don't tell Uncle Gustav. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. He did so good. It was so funny. And, it's sort of snotty to his big brother. I thought it was really good. Way to go.
It was. Way to go, Jacob. Your Oscar's waiting. Okay. So Sophie has gone to Cafe des Artistes.
Yes. Which is that
upsets
the same
Chris
one?
even more.
Is that the same one that they went to?
Because it looks different. None of those businesses ever wanted Dracula the series back. They were like, we saw your show, it sucks. Somebody might recognize us.
Yeah.
When they vacation in Luxembourg from suburban Toronto. But then Max asks why Chris cares, which affects the continuity again because Max set them up on a date. You would think Max would at least have checked in on the date. We didn't get that scene last time.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, the whole point was to convince Chris that he liked Sophie.
Yeah.
So now that he does, she's going out. And who's she going out with? But an old man.
Well, he's not that old. But we can't tell how old he is. 15. I think she's 15.
So but Emily just wants you to know, Andrew likes Alan Eastman, and Emily is totes cool with 23-year-olds dating 15-year-olds.
I'm not okay with that.
And she already said she liked Charlie Sheen, so that makes sense. But yes, I find it amusing that you don't have that note, because my first note is, that is an old-ass man who should be like, little girl, you need to stay away.
So I thought immediately, that's what I thought. I was like, what is she doing sitting down and dating some college kid? Why is this happening? And then and the way he talked and whatever, we'll talk about that in a minute. I couldn't quite nail down how old he was supposed to be. But yeah, it was creepy. It was really creepy. And tried to find his age. You could not find how old he was, the actor, and nor could I. And there's no discussion of how old he is. But he has clearly charmed Sophie one way or the other with his talk of existentialism, his use of a thesaurus to write poetry, and I don't know.
It's called grooming, actually, is what we call that.
It's really gross. He's really annoying. He is he's terrible, and we can talk about how terrible he is more as the show goes on.
Well, maybe if you read some Sartre, you'd understand.
Yeah, I live in the moment.
Okay, but first, don't let me forget my joke. Okay, my joke. Yes, why don't we always watch shows where all of the jokes are basically about sexual predators? Innocuous sitcom-length shows that are actually just about men being dangerous sexual predators because society exists.
Because society is just starting to realize that men in powerful positions are actually sexual predators. They think they can get away with anything.
This guy's not in a powerful position.
That's true.
Okay, so, and despite turning people into vampires, Lucard's had a better understanding of consent than lots of folks on this show.
That's true.
So, moving on to Dracula being sick. The doctor's like, oh, that sucks, Dracula, it's fatal. And that's sad.
He puts him into hypnosis to discover.
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
So there's a lot of short scenes in this. Like I said, that first cut really kind of was jarring to me.
Well, the action's going to cut between all three of them at this point, right? Because we've
Yeah.
got the doctor and Sophie. Then we cut to the point you stole from me. Gustav at home watching Name That Polka and talking shit to the contestant who doesn't get it. And I'm just like, who is this character?
So I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really, really stupid. And it's really so let's talk about Luxembourg a little bit. And let's talk about European tradition. Polka is a Germanic thing, right? Uh Luxembourg is partially a Germanic country, but it's so like just reducing kind of European culture down to it's like the sports thing with Chris earlier in an earlier episode, right? Where he's like, oh, there's only women's tennis. And it's like, no, there's not. There's such cool sports in Europe. But it's just reducing it to this like stereotype. And it's so funny to me that Name That Polka is one of those stereotypes that they're going to just glom onto. And that Gustav is so competitive about it. Ridiculous. And he loves schnitzel. I mean, like that's who this character is. They're going to throw every stereotype at this character. That's what they're going to do.
Except basic competence. Okay, so
well, he recognizes an opportunity. He recognizes an opportunity to kill Lucard. And that's the first time that's ever true. Fucking happened.
That is true. We did, yes. Gustav is gonna not be as nice to Lucard as Lucard's been to Gustav's entire family, including the children in his care.
For 12 episodes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Max comes in, and I think he's actually got the fucking schnitzel or something. He's like, hey, there was some weird guy in the square. I got a bad feeling about him. Like a vampire feeling.
Yeah.
He was short with a tall black hat, and he limped, and he had a doctor's bag. And Gustav's like, oh, that must be Dr. Varney. Dr. Yeah. Gabor Varney, the renowned vampire doctor. This means Lucard's sick, and it's our chance.
Yeah, because he doesn't just care for any vampire. So it's got to be Lucard.
So now we cut back to the cafe, where the scene ends with establishing Chris is there watching.
Yes.
Which
is creepy.
Starts with Vincent saying, Sophia, or something.
He's reading a poem. He's reading a poem, and he can't just say Sophie. He's got to add the at the end to make the meter work.
Well, yes, because he needs to make her sound like she's not a fucking child, which she is. And then he's like, our auras were as one, and she touched my inner soul. And Sophie's like, is that about me, Vincent? Even a little? He's like, everything's about you, Sophie. If you read Sartre, you'd understand. He's an existentialist, like me. We live in the now. When you're 14, or I'm sorry, 15, so it's okay by Emily. And then...
Not true. You know, I'm not editing this out, so I have to, like, justify. I have to, like, no.
And then tomorrow, you'll be 15 plus 1 day, which means you'll be too old for me and Leonardo DiCaprio. To which Sophie goes, oh, Vincent. No, and then we notice Chris watching.
Yeah, so Chris is watching.
Like, and it's just like, dude, this should just be Chris killing this fucking guy. Like, just like, that's the rest of this show. Chris goes over, kills him, and the rest of the show is his trial. And he's like, no, man, like, I'm not cool with, like, some 23-year-old Eurotrash scumbag, you know, picking up on some teenage girl. Like, we're not doing that. They're like, but it's Luxembourg. And he's like, no, man. Phillies football, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And, you know, like, that's the rest of the show.
Phillies
Canadian
football,
American,
ladies and gentlemen.
Canadian American Chris defending the age of consent. But we wouldn't have that, obviously, because Gustav would be like, well, I remember when I was 42 and I liked a 16-year-old girl. That was fine. It was 1986. It was a different time then, kids. You wouldn't understand. Okay.
Back to the story. So Chris is watching. And
cut to Lucard getting hypnotized.
Which, you know, the Dr. Varney in this situation is essentially an exposition machine, right? He's like, oh, you're still, you know, able to be hypnotized despite all of your powers, which are diminished anyway because you're sick. And Lucard is kind of rambling a little bit, talking about how he's only interested in money, but he's supposed to be recounting the events of the past 2 days. And all I want is blood, but he wants my money. And then we get a flashback to the masked thief in the street. He wants my money. He wants my money. All I want is blood. His blood tasted bad. It was bad blood. And Dr. Varney snaps his fingers, wakes up Lucard, and is like, you drank some blood with an antigen in it that is harmful to vampires, and you could die. The only remedy to this is this natural spring water outside of the village. Or is that later? Did I skip way ahead?
No, you didn't, but I've got the exact quote because somebody put it into the IMDb synopsis.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Weird. Yes, the IMDb synopsis for this is really good, which is fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the cure, this is a quote to our unnamed contributor, the cure is xylastrium, a compound found only in the waters of Paquette Spring in the Valetej Valley, which I wrote down as Zelastnia. And then he's like, but the spring is in private hands. And Dracula's like, that's okay, I own it. This is important, but not. Okay, yeah. This was also the all work and no play makes Drac a dull boy. Yeah. So during hypnosis, Lucard refers to himself as Drac, which means he is got some ego issues, but his ego issues also have him seeing himself as Drac, which means all of his hammy shit is like, no, I'm cool, like, people love Dracula. Like, it is, if this were a good show, this would be an awesome insight. It's not a good show, and he's not a good actor, but, like, the idea of Dracula buying into himself being Dracula and, like, flexing it is a potentially cool idea.
Yeah.
Not this. But then Dracula's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the spring. And the doctor's like, nah, man, you're too sick. I'm going to go get it for you.
Yeah.
And Dracula's like, I want to do it myself. And the doctor's like, don't you trust me? And he's like, no. Which raises some issues.
Yes.
All right. Back to the cafe. Vincent got Sophie earrings. How could you afford those, Vincent? I would beg, borrow, or steal for you, Sophia. Oh. At this point, Chris comes over and confronts them. They're whispering, presumably because he's like, you're not going to tell anybody that we're getting married, that you're secretly my wife now, even though I'm 35 years old. It's fine. Okay. Chris comes over and confronts them, and I'm like, what's Chris going to, like,
right.
There's only so much Chris can do. But
Chris
what he should have done is, he should have picked up a knife at a neighboring table and just stabbed him, just straight up.
Yeah.
Just defend your foster sister kissing cousin. Like, do it. What?
Yeah.
What?
I'm reading V.C. Andrews right now. You can't scandalize me with incest.
I thought you only read V.C. Andrews before you turned 13.
I did, but I'm reading it again, and I'm in the 4th novel of the series, and I'll finish after the 5th, and then I'll just be done. It's fucked
reinforce
up.
Some of the good ideas, to reinforce some of the life lessons you learned. Did you ever have a teacher confront a student about V.C. Andrews?
No, but
in class?
In 8th grade, my social studies teacher at parent teacher conferences told my mom, like, had an intervention and told my mom, like, she needs to start reading books for school because she's only reading Anne Rice and Stephen King and V.C. Andrews, and she needs to stop that now. She needs to stop. And I didn't. I just kept reading.
What happened. And now you have
I did stop reading V.C. Andrews, but I continued reading Stephen King and Anne Rice.
And now you have a podcast about Dracula the series. The circle is complete.
Well, I'm reading this novel by Derek Jarman right now, so that's a little bit better. That's a little cooler.
It's less problematic than V.C. Andrews.
And look at how shiny it is.
It is, but it doesn't have a nice little picture window on the cover where you can
I know.
see a reveal. Okay, So when Chris roughhouses, we then see that Vincent's bag has the skull on it. He's the mugger
He's the
with
mugger.
the blood condition. Oh God. Okay, here it is. The moment we've all been waiting for. We got some Randy Bradshaw, Crane, or at least he's got a camera on the stairs. It's Dracula, Jordy Johnson doing a monologue,
Doing a
showing
monologue.
off his stage skills.
And
He's projecting.
he is. And slowly throughout this, after the first little snippet of the episode, he's slowly become more grotesque looking, and he has got serious case of meth face and meth mouth, not really losing teeth. And drug addiction is a serious thing, and I don't mean to make fun of people who are drug addicts, but he's got sores on his skin, he's got brown teeth. He's really not looking his best, and he is a reasonably attractive man, Jordy Johnson. So this condition that is killing him really is like rotting his flesh. Maybe it's destroying whatever is preserving his dead flesh, because he is rotting away.
He is indeed. And he has a monologue about how he doesn't want to die and shit. He talks to God, and the animals all howl. And he's like, "You've turned against me, children of the night." And I'm just like, doesn't anybody notice every dog in town having a shit fit? But
Yeah.
apparently not. That's just how they act in Luxembourg. But yes, there is this subtext, and we were, I think, the first. How long until there would be a vampire movie that addressed AIDS? I think a few more years. The Addiction. Doesn't The Addiction talk about AIDS?
I don't know. I've never seen that one.
I've never seen it. Abel Ferrara gets the thumbs down. But there is this, yeah, the kid's got a rare antigen. Or what if he had a, like,
Yeah.
they don't really address it. And I don't know how far it got. And oh God, the idea of the Dracula, the series writer's room. But you could see that, I mean, this would be I feel like there was a comic by this time that had a vampire biting somebody with AIDS and like it being a thing.
Yeah.
So whether or not that, since it's not in this, we don't actually get into the exploitative nature of that subplot. But yeah, so instead it's just this antigen X,
Yeah.
which makes no sense from the doctor's point of view.
But also it makes no sense once we discover more things about the robber later on in the episode.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll have to hash that out when we get to it. But first, we have to go to the forest, where we get the most nighttime location photography this show has ever done.
Yeah.
It's Jordy Johnson stumbling through a forest, and I'm just like, they put the camera outside at night. I am so impressed.
Yeah. No day for night here.
Yeah. Nope. Just muddy, terrible.
And Jordy's doing it. He's down on the ground, crawling.
Yep.
But somehow, despite being like literally falling apart, he managed to get his cape on. Luckily, he got his cape on so he could crawl through the mud and get it all dirty. Whatever. He's a millionaire.
Costumes only cost $10 at Halloween Adventure or whatever. So, okay. So now Chris is. This is the next. How does the timeline in this?
I don't know how the timeline works. Because she's a woman and or a young lady, and we always focus on what women are wearing. But she changes her clothes multiple times. So when she leaves the house originally to go out on the date in that first scene with the two of them, she's wearing something completely different than when she shows up at the cafe to meet Vincent when we see him for the first time. And then this scene, she's wearing something completely different again, and he's apologizing for ruining her date. Like, it's really weird. She's wearing 3 different outfits over the course of what seems to me to be one night.
Yeah, and this scene's during the day. Right? Like this is daylight.
Maybe. I don't remember. That's weird. But she looks great. I love that neon green jacket. Woo! Love it.
So did Vincent. Okay, so Chris is like, I'm sorry, Sophie, I made a mistake. And it's like, dude, you didn't make a mistake. You should be like, what are you doing with that old ass man? What is going on in your life? Like, this is not appropriate.
Yeah.
He's a hebophile, Chris, not a pedophile.
Ugh.
He wants to sell me an NFT. Vincent is a genuine artist. He has meaning in his life. To which Chris responds, writing bad poetry and sulking around isn't meaning in his life.
Yeah.
And then
it's the most insightful. It's the most insightful Chris has ever been.
There was a moment when I was like, is Chris going to be good? And then he candidated it up. But I mean, some of his sentiment is right on, but he could go for the much simpler. He's a fucking criminal, dude. Like, you're a little kid. That's why he likes you. He's a predator.
Yeah.
We're going to drag him behind this shitty car that never drives. Okay. So, yeah. And then he's like, he's just not the guy for you, Sophie. And Sophie's like, well, who is the guy for me, Chris? And Chris just looks away and she storms off.
That's this weird belabored will they won't they thing that they keep coming back to despite the fact that they have been on dates on multiple episodes and seemingly enjoy each other's company and have a good time.
And not to mention the first handful of episodes, they had nothing to do except spent the entire episodes running off and spending alone time together in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Like they were just upstairs back when Max and his little hat were the lead. Okay. Speaking of which, Max gets jacked to do this episode.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Thank goodness.
Cut back.
He did that impression of Mia Kirshner. He's done. Check out. Send him home.
Okay. Back to the spring.
Oh,
where
right.
I noticed so many exteriors. Dracula has made it to the spring. Everything's going to be okay. Except then Max and Gustav get there. And Gustav's going to let Dracula die, and he says, you don't have to watch this, Max. And Dracula's like, all right, Helsing, you won. You don't have to humiliate me as well.
Yeah.
Seemingly meaning stake me now and get it over with.
Yeah.
Max then rolls up his vest and puts it under Dracula's head. Now, let's not forget, how many times has Dracula saved Max? At least twice.
Yeah, multiple times.
He saved him alone at least twice. Sophie, I think, once.
And
at least once.
Not to mention, in every single episode, he's let them escape.
Yep.
One way or another. Like, so he's saving them, maybe not outright saving them from danger, but letting them go without being eaten.
So then Dracula has some night cover me monologue with the bad accent. And then Gustav says, close your eyes, Max, and gets out the stake. But then the doctor gets there with a gun. Okay. Cut to Sophie walking home at night. Nighttime scene for sure.
Yeah. And this is in the same green jacket, right? She's in the same green jacket that she was wearing.
So presumably she went off during the day and broke up with him. Lucard and Max and the doctor are all on a different timeline. They're still in last night. Okay. So Chris is like, what's wrong, Sophie? She goes, I'm not seeing Vincent anymore. He's like, well, that makes this easier. I really like you, Sophie. She's like, really? And he's like, really? Yesterday, when I said, you asked who the guy for you was, I wanted to say me. And she's like, you wanted to say me? And he's like, that's affirmative, because I like Top Gun. Just like today. Just like today. Top Gun is the cultural touchstone for white people. Okay. So then she's like, well, I have an admission to make too. But then we cut back to the doctor. And the doctor's like letting Dracula drink. And
so does Dracula actually take a drink from the
yes.
body of water? Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
From the spring that was made to sound very exotic, but is just at the end of the forest level.
Yeah.
That Max and Gustav could apparently drive to, but Dracula had to crawl through because he let all the staff off for this weekend, so he couldn't have anybody fucking take him there. Like, it makes no sense. One
Yeah.
of his zombies.
He couldn't have his limo drive him down there to the
right.
I don't know.
Oh, a Hummer, that would have been awesome. A little early though, but
Yeah.
still, he could have had a tank. Okay, doctor's all like, "You can't kill Dracula. He just makes more patients for me. This is great."
Yeah. Capitalism.
And Dracula's like, "Oh, something's not working with this water. What's going on, doctor?" And the doctor's like, "Well, Lucard, it appears you've been pumping too many toxic chemicals into this water for it to work anymore." And Lucard's like, "What?" And he's like, "It's okay though. I have this vial of purified water that you can have right now." So Lucard gets this vial that the doctor's had in his bag the entire time. They tell Gustav and Max to toddle off.
Go away before he gets hungry, essentially.
Yep. And so that's it. Let's go, Max. And they head off. All right. So now we cut back to Chris and Sophie.
Yeah.
And we start, and Chris is like, "Are we going to be boyfriend and girlfriend?" And Sophie's like, "You'll see, Chris. It's going to be different." And it's different because Vincent the vampire grabs Chris to attack him from behind.
Yeah. So it's funny, not funny. It struck me as odd that Vincent the vampire jumps out, and Chris doesn't really seem to take note that it's Vincent or that it's a vamp. Like, I don't really know what Chris is thinking. But the fact that I guess by the end of it, Chris pulls out the cross that's around his neck, and it chases Vincent away. But he's like, "Oh, Sophie, looks like you broke up with him just in time." But I was very confused by that because they were struggling for a minute before he realized that Vincent was a vampire, or that the vampire was Vincent. I couldn't quite tell. What was happening.
So then Sophie fangs out on him.
Which is another fantastic surprise. I really enjoyed that. I was like, yes, finally, we're killing people. Yeah. Let's kill some of these.
Then she runs off. And we cut back to Dracula's house, or the castle, where he's getting shit from his doctor. "Really, Dracula, you shouldn't be walking around in daylight, hardly sleeping, eating normal food."
Yeah. So they're addressing some of the things that we have discussed that are inconsistent with our perception of vampires. So he did eat that popcorn when watching that TV show.
Yep. This lifestyle has caught up with him. He needed a taste of mortality to teach him a lesson, says the doctor.
And then he talks about, you just wander around the village, sucking the blood of any random person. Is this like an AIDS thing? Is it really like an AIDS thing? Like, you can't just go sleep around with anybody. You could get AIDS. You can't just go fang out with anybody because you could get some antigen X that will kill you. It seems,
you would think,
like, heavy-handed.
Yeah, but I mean, since it doesn't actually have that, they never bring up the antigen X or the danger of that.
No.
It's not, but it almost seems like it was watered down.
Yeah. From it. Like, maybe they thought they would do it. It's like heavy-handed and watered down if you somehow have both.
But then in comes Sophie.
Oh, yes.
To which Dracula says, "What do we have here? It's been days since I've had a bite." To which Sophie says, "No need for that, master. I'm here to learn from you. Teach me everything you know." And then she shows him her fangs, and he says, "Come on in."
So I was really creeped out by the "I want you to teach me everything you know," since we're talking about perverted old men. She was wearing a very skimpy dress. She had a jacket over it, but it was a very snug dress showing off. She's 15 years old. She should not be dressing like that. She's asking, I mean, this was clearly written by a man. Ask a 15-year-old, very beautiful, whatever, asking an older man to teach her everything he knows is very, very, very icky. Even if they're just talking about vampirism. It's very, very icky to me. And it left me feeling really icky. I can't say anything else. And I'm really, really disappointed that since this is the end of the episode, that means there's going to be a second episode following up. There's a two episode arc, and I'm not interested in going down this route where she becomes some. It's never mind. It reminds me of Labyrinth with Jennifer Connelly kind of being the child bride of David Bowie. Ugh.
Did she also meet David Bowie in that movie? So
don't be a regionalist. Questions. Don't be a regionalist. I can pronounce it how I want to pronounce it.
Hold on, I gotta go get my Bowie knife for hunting vampires. Okay. Some other questions this raises, besides the timeline, which is completely broken. Did Vincent come back with Sophie with the understanding that they were going to kill Chris?
Okay.
So that is one question. And if so, why is she running to Lucard without Vincent?
Yeah.
Or did Vincent turn Sophie into a vampire, presumably when she thought they were going to be having sex instead? And then she was like, oh, I'm a vampire now. This fucking rocks. Fuck this loser existentialist. Let me go turn Chris, and then we'll go hang out with Lucard.
Yeah.
So there and also some questions as to
when did Sophie get turned into a vampire? How long had she been a vampire without anybody noticing?
Especially since it can happen during the day all the time. You can just be outside. Was she wearing sunglasses during any of it? No. Is this the second time? Yes. So 2 episodes ago, somebody was going to turn her into a vampire and she didn't want to be a vampire, but now she's a vampire and she's thrilled.
Hey, I kept waiting for some like shape-shifting elements to come up. Like I just kept waiting like, no, Sophie can't be a vampire. That's got to be somebody else. No, this Vincent guy. Well, the Vincent scenario all clicked in my mind immediately. It's like, oh, this guy that she's seeing is the guy who robbed Lucard at the beginning. Like that all clicked into place pretty easily. But the vampire element, who turned Vincent into a vampire?
Dracula.
Did he though? He just sucked his blood. Again, we don't know what that process is that turns him into a vampire.
Got antigen X. So we don't know how antigen X affects. Yes, because in the original,
but if he was already a vampire, does he have vampire blood, and is that what was killing Lucard?
No, because Dracula would know that presumably, or the doctor would have been like, "You can't suck another vampire's blood, you idiot." Like we wouldn't have had to talk about the rare antigen.
So when did he get
the mineral?
So he got turned into a vampire by Lucard. Beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Even though Lucard was sick and crawled away into an alley.
And even though we've established that the 3 outcomes of a vampire attack are death,
zombies, vampire,
or other vampire. Yeah. And presumably Lucard was biting to kill.
Yeah.
But instead of that, he didn't become a zombie. He became his own vampire on his own.
I don't know.
Perhaps next episode we'll get
maybe he accidentally cut Lucard with the knife and got blood on him and licked the blood off of him, and that's how he turned into a vampire.
We've never established.
Yeah, we don't know how it works.
To suck Lucard's blood. Yeah. So yes, one hell of an episode. It might make sense around episode 4 or 5, but it seems fucking desperate at episode 12.
Yeah, it's really weird. I think that Sophie should have become a vampire before Mom did, for sure. Because we don't see Mom as much, so we're not as attached to her as a character. But having Mia Kirshner turn into a vampire sooner would have been much better. So the next episode is called Sophie, Queen of the Night. Again, it's going to follow up on the events of this episode we just talked about, there are some other actors that I've never heard of. Alan King is returning to direct. Oh my God. People have submitted quotes on IMDb. Why are they doing this? Maybe. Whatever. Whatever. Okay.
Is it you? Is this like a,
I'm
do you
not
have a
doing.
multiple personality who is leaving Dracula quotes on IMDb?
No, I haven't watched
Is
it
this an
yet.
incredibly long con, Emily? Is that why you made me watch this show? Is there some
No.
super long con that we're gonna get
No.
done with it? And you're gonna be like, actually, my husband is Jacob Tierney. Like,
Oh God. No. No. Nope. My
so
husband
that
is
means
not
you have
Jacob.
no excuse for making us watch this show. So what
Nope.
you're saying is,
Nope.
uh,
Nope. Sorry. Sorry.
yeah, and like we were talking about, I don't know. This is more of a real TV episode, but I don't know if that makes it better.
No,
Like,
it's like if it were an hour-long episode and the whole story, presumably the next episode resolves all of this, because I cannot imagine them continuing an arc like this for too long. But if it had been an hour-long episode, I think the pacing of it would have made more sense. But a 22-minute
yeah,
episode was so weird to be cutting every 2 minutes between
yeah.
these two, I guess, two storylines. It was real weird. Real weird. So anyway, I'm excited for next week to get this over with.
But then we still have 6 more episodes. But we have the clip show. Also, folks,
Oh my
this is
God.
the highest rated Bad Blood, not Sophie Queen of the Night. Bad Blood is the highest rated on IMDb, which has a devoted Dracula the series fan base.
Apparently.
Highest rated episode with 7.4, followed at 7 by the second to last episode, which is called something like My Dinner with Lucard or My Dinner with Dracula, which is a clip show. So Emily discovered that. The highest rated is
Maybe we can have our own clip
actual
show.
sexual predator groomer, followed by clip show.
Maybe we can have our own clip show where we talk about our favorite moments from Dracula the series.
We should have been doing that this whole time. That is so much work at this point. Our favorite moments from the last 4 episodes of Dracula the series, including the clip show. I think it would just be frustrating because you're like, why didn't they ever finish up on that?
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't Max get Dracula's autograph since he wants it so bad before he kills him?
Since he sees him every fucking day, apparently.
Right. Like, since they hang out and have like weird misadventures before they have to fight the villain of the week. What happened to the bikes?
Yeah. Chris was on his bike. Chris was on his bike when he was talking to Sophie, walking in the daytime. The first time we see her in her green, he was on his bike.
That is totally the next day then, right?
I have no idea. I clocked it, and then I was like, if you think about this too much, you're going to go crazy. If you think about the timeline, you're going to go nuts. Just ignore it.
Dracula was definitely in the castle at night with the doctor.
Yes. But the castle has no windows, so it's not like, it's by candlelight. Oh, okay.
I think there was an establishing shot.
Okay.
It's weird that it was very lit by candlelight this episode. I think Randy Bradshaw he was like, we need some vermicelitude up in this mofo. And they were like, nah, okay, we won't turn on this light, dude. Whatever. It's Dracula the series. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens next time.
We'll see what happens next time. I'm excited to wrap up this storyline because I don't want to.
Do you think that there will be any romantic tingling between Chris and Sophie?
Yes.
Or do you think you don't think they're just gonna forget it?
No.
We'll see.
I think
you have so much more faith in them than I do.
I think that this is Chris's opportunity to help save Sophie. thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week when we watch Sophie, Queen of the Night, episode 14 of
14, 6 left.
Woo! Of Dracula the series. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
And I will see you in television land, Emily.
I'll see you in television land, Andrew.